We want to talk about whether or not Elon Musk is the most powerful man on the planet. This week, Elon and Trump did a X discussion. It was a conversation, quote unquote. They both talked for about 90 minutes on X. Is Elon Musk the most powerful man on the planet? How did we get here? What should we do about it? Legacy media is dying, right? If you're not going on podcasts, if you're not online, you're not really reaching the masses. Elon Musk controls communication. He controls satellites. He controls one of the largest discourse platforms in the world. In some regard, he has his button on the algorithms, on what people see, what they hear, whether they lean right, they lean left. I think that's probably true for most of these tech CEOs at this point, that we have proof in the past that they've leaned a certain direction. And as things get more consolidated and they get more powerful, why would that ever change? And now you have people like Elon having a general conversation without really any boundaries, and not saying there should be, but this is why we're having the discussion, is 55 million people see this without any fact checking, without any structure. This is the direction that communication and discourse is happening in the world. I think people want it. There was a letter from the EU saying, hey, Elon, you need to stop this because you're infringing in the rights of citizens in the EU. And Elon basically told him to go F themselves. So is he the most powerful man on the planet? And does that matter? Can he influence elections? Can he influence trade? Can he influence free speech?
Why did they say it was infringing on rights of the EU?
Honestly, I don't really understand, but basically, I think the premise was that some of the things that they were talking about perhaps were untrue and perhaps created, Mike, maybe you can fill in the gaps. Maybe it was like harsh content, or I'm not sure exactly what their issue was, but the Prime Minister of the UK basically wrote him a letter that says, hey, you're infringing on the communication laws of the EU. And Elon really quickly responded saying, go F yourself.
Yeah. But so the premise is he's saying, hey, so through Twitter, he's able to like do an interview and get 50 million people to watch it.
That's right.
And I mean, I bet it didn't show in China, right?
And it's happening in South America too, where governments are saying, hey, you need to clock what's going on, what you're showing on X on your platform in my country.
They already do it though. Countries do that. Like I'm telling you, there's no way that interview showed live in China.
Yeah. And I think just bringing it back to your initial question. So the United States of America is actually one of the only places where freedom of speech is a right. And so you just like pulled a whole bunch of issues together.
I do that, don't I, Mikey? Help us get us straight, Mr. Sage. Get us straight.
I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. But I think we just kind of have to chunk this down, because the reality is, like, the UK has all kinds of laws around freedom of speech and what can be disseminated. And back to Aaron's point, I think this is the point that Aaron was probably making. Did this get broadcast in China? No, we don't expect it to, because like we think of China as this like very, they censor everything.
Right,
well, the reality is, and Aaron, to your point, the UK is the same. I mean, if you listen to, tech companies and everything else, like they're constantly getting slammed by lawsuits from the United Kingdom. Why? Because they don't actually believe in freedom of speech. So that's a separate issue. If we want to talk about freedom of speech, then let's talk about that. Is Elon Musk the most powerful man in the world? No. My direct answer to that would be no, but is he very powerful? Yes. Ashish, another thing that you layered on, and I'll just plant this and then we can kind of dissect these. But, I have some interesting thoughts around Elon. I love the guy. And as long as you love the guy and you agree with him, then somebody's going to answer your question saying, yeah, go Elon. But the reality is, like, anybody like Elon Musk that is like, he makes more money than NASA does now sending satellites into space. And tell me that he isn't in the government's pocket. Democrats, Republicans, we talk a lot about the military industrial complex. His whole thing that was going on 12 months ago with Ukraine and trying to set up the Wi-Fi for Ukraine and the battle between Starlink. Is he a good human? I don't know the answer to that. And if you love Elon, then you're going to be like, yeah, go Elon. And if you hate Elon, you're going to be like, Elon's a puppet. And so I don't know, like,
well, tell me, part of the discussion, tell me why you like Elon or love Elon, and why you think people love Elon. And let's steel man it. Because I think that's a big part of it, right? And he's still just another guy. He's just a personality, really.
Elon is a visionary. Elon is you know, when you ask the question about the most powerful man in the world, probably top 30 or 50 most powerful people in the world. Why? Because he doesn't give a shit. And when he has some kind of, I actually, this is the weird side of Mike coming out. But I think when you look at people like Einstein, when you look at people like Elon Musk, when you look at people that are just that able, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg, they come up with these like crazy ideas. There's this story that I heard told one time, and this is a parallel to it. But Michael Jackson used to call his agent at like 3 a.m. in the morning. And he would be like, we need to be in the recording studio within 30 minutes. And his agent would be like, Michael, just wait till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. And Michael made this comment, and this came from the agent, not Michael Jackson. Michael made the comment. He said, if I don't record this song right now, Prince is going to get it. And what Michael was saying is that like songs would get downloaded. We've all heard the term before, like I got this download. Anytime there's like a crazy idea,
spirit, energy,
people will call it like, I just got this download. Where'd you come up with that crazy idea? I don't know. It just hit me. And so I think you have these people like Elon that whether he's actually an alien or whether he's tapped into, you know, whether he just meditates and gets these ideas, like I'm inspired by him because every idea, these are like these crazy far-fetched ideas that somebody like Elon can come by with. So that's why I admire him. Do I agree with everything that he does? Do I agree with, you know, who he is as a core individual?
What should we be
No,
concerned about? What would you be concerned about with a person like Elon? I mean, I think I agree with you completely, right? He is incredibly inspiring. He does things no one else is willing to do, work like no one's willing to do, create things like no one's willing to do. So he should be paid for that. He also is relentlessly fearless. He is absolutely go F yourself fearless. Where should we be concerned about that? And where does that go too far?
We should be concerned with everybody that has that much, you know, control, influence, and everybody is in somebody's pocket. Now, again, back to your core question, the answer to your question of whether we should be concerned or not depends on, you know, which side of the aisle you're on. And Elon right now, even back to your point on Twitter, is very, you know, pro-Trump, pro-Republican, anti like left establishment. Yeah. It depends on what side of the aisle you're on. And I think the real core answer to your question is always going to be which side of the aisle you are on and where does somebody like Elon lean? You know, everybody's pissed off at Mark.
I think go ahead. Sorry, finish.
Well, I feel like you're trying to ask a question and get an answer. If I just had to point blank answer your question, should I be concerned? It depends on who I agree with and who I don't. And that's what's going to make
that's exactly why I wanted to bring this up, because I think literally if you go back a few years, and it really has nothing to do with where I lean. I think if you've been listening to the podcast, you kind of know where we all lean a little bit. But I was looking at this objectively over the last couple of days. If you look at what's going on in tech and all these huge platforms, all these tech leaders have so much power. Really, you just change the mechanics of an algorithm a little bit, right? These human beings have that much influence. I'm going to lean everybody this way. I'm going to lean everybody this way. A few years ago, their Facebook, Twitter, the old X, Twitter, everybody, right? The Twitter files came out. The government was involved. Everybody was leaning towards the left. And now you have even Zuckerberg, who's like, dude, Trump's a badass. He's a badass. Those guys can just go just a little bit to the right. And now you have Elon saying the same thing, who's voted Democrat his whole life. I don't necessarily care. What I'm saying is what happens next? Are we basically just, I mean, if legacy media, who has lost their way of asking fair, reasonable questions, being in the middle of the road, and really investigating the truth, we no longer care about the truth. We only care about, you know, what we're being fed, and we may not even be able to control that. Where do we go? And maybe it goes, no, I'm not going to even say it that it doesn't matter. I think this does matter. I was gonna go there. Mike, doesn't matter, but I was like, no, it does matter. I think this matters. That's why I'm asking the question.
I said this in the phone booth 4 weeks ago. We have a uniparty. Like, I like Trump, and I think Trump would be better for the economy, but everybody's in somebody's pocket, and our system is broken.
There's no solution to the system. The Elon is, you know, Mike's comment of the 30 to 50 most powerful people. I totally agree with that. But when you're like, well, it depends on what party you're a part of. Musk voted for Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden in 2020.
Yeah.
Right? And in 2024, now he supports Donald Trump, but he liked Vivek better. So he wanted Vivek in the primaries. And so so you're talking about like companies are now going from being liberal to Republican. Man, people are allowed to change their mind, and people should change their mind. And a lot of people, based on the life that we're living, most of the time, like when government changes hands from Republican to Democrat, I mean, would you believe that California used to be a Republican state, right?
Yeah.
Like
maybe another question, Mooch, to add on to that is, and I'm a little younger involved in terms of like seeing politics, but you see leaders give political opinion, business leaders give political opinion much more now than we did in the past. Is that true? And does that matter?
That's true. But back in man, I feel old.
Like never talk about politics in the office, right? Like, but now every single leader of every business has an opinion.
It changed a bunch when Bill Clinton ran against Bush. The whole way that American politics happened changed then. The year 2000 was when they started they started talking about the president 18 months before, right? And I just remember everybody at the time being like, why are we talking about this so early? But around, I don't know what year the 24-hour news cycle started, but part of it is just based on the 24-hour news cycle. So like, are the social media executives powerful and the most powerful people in the world right now? Some of them, yeah. But but before that, it was the guys running CNN and the guys running Fox News. Like there's always been people, whoever has the biggest megaphone. It's like, is it a problem? It doesn't matter if it's a problem or not. It's an unfixable thing. And Musk and Zuckerberg are just like the guys that used to own the Post and Times. And people are always going to use their stuff. Here's just a funny, crazy example, right? So what do I think of Elon? I like Elon. What I like about him is, when he bought Twitter, he opened up the files to show like, hey, here's the open book. That's when, and at the time, he was still a Biden voter around that time. And then he like saw the truth and then was like, wait, this isn't okay. Let me release these files. Like up until like when he bought Twitter, he was still a Biden supporter, right? And so he like saw more information, shared his info. But like, so what I like is he was doing stuff like that. Or what I like is he has been using his venue to say like, hey, I just asked ChatGPT about the Trump assassination and they said Trump never got shot at and that was a lie. And so he is using his platform to point stuff out. I think that if he thought Donald Trump was getting a fair shake through the rest of the media, there's no way he would have interviewed him.
Yeah,
I think he's interviewing him
because
he believes what is wrong with the system. And I think he's interviewing him because he's like, hey, nobody's interviewing Trump right now and they should be. Or, hey, we're not even talking about the assassination attempt anymore. It's not even on any news, anything. No one cares. This has happened 5 times in the history of the US and it's not news on our 24-hour news cycle anymore. Yeah. So the system is broken. And I think what he is trying when it comes to like the news and forming opinions and the outreach, but I think him alone he is actually trying to bring fairness to it and saying, hey, these other news organizations are not doing this. So I'm going to go be the other side of it. So what, that he has the biggest venue or the biggest look. I bet more people watch the Tom Brady, special on Netflix where everybody roasted him. Right. So so maybe Tom Brady's more successful than Elon.
I have some follow up to that too. And I'll branch this in 2 parts. So number one, Aaron, what you brought up is such a great point. And I was thinking back to when Nixon took us off of the gold standard, and there's all these old videos of when they announced this stuff. So they announced it, at an evening time when everybody was on TV, and they made it sound like it was the best thing in the world. And the majority of Americans had no idea that that was like the nail in the coffin that set us up for everything right now that we're dealing with fractional reserve banking and the Fed and inflation being out of control and all of the above. And when Aaron was talking about, the old media versus new media, and Ashish, to tie in your comment of, business owners being more vocal about politics, I actually think, and I believe this is a good thing, I think that the average American and the average business owner is more informed today because of the information age.
I agree with that.
Facebook, Twitter, we're just informed. I think that's a good thing because I think the majority of Americans used to just stick their head in the sand and didn't really realize the major impact of what the government was doing to them, or the impacts of what the government does, Congress, House of Representatives, etc. We're just like, you know, in our little zone, not realizing.
So you think
how
people are sharing their opinion more now because they're more informed, that they somehow are influenced by the government more, so they feel like I can have an opinion more now in this season.
Let me finish this, and then you can ask whatever question you want. But I think people are more informed now, which I think is a good thing. I think when the transition happened, we needed everyday citizens, business owners to understand what's happening to them. I think the pendulum has swung the opposite way, to your point, on what's truth, what's not truth. We just have so much information now. So I think it's really hard. I think that's where the divide really came in. So to Aaron's point, I think the news cycle of today is X. It is, you know, Facebook, et cetera. And we're more informed. But the real problem now is like, what's truth, which has caused a huge division. But the other thing that, like, you know, as Aaron's talking through this, that I really want to come back to and make sure that I anchor this. When you look at whether it's Elon Musk or Peter Thiel, all the tech companies, even Mark Zuckerberg saying Trump is a badass. If I wanted to make a whole bunch of money in defense in the United States of America, and I said this a few episodes back, I would vote for Trump. Why? Because I think I think the average American citizen, you know, and by the way, Dems and Republicans want us to be all over the world, spending money everywhere. But if you look at Trump's narrative on close down the borders, secure the United States of America, and you look at the Democrats' stance on that, open borders, let everyone in, I think there's an entire tech community, including Elon Musk, that sees a massive military industrial complex opportunity coming to the United States. And if I wanted to be part of that, I would vote for Donald Trump, because his whole narrative is like, we have to protect our citizens. And I'm telling you, when Donald Trump gets elected, even though I want him to get elected, you watch the next if he gets elected, watch the next 4 years, there is going to be more money spent on protecting us as United States citizens. And these tech mongrels are going to make so much freaking money on systems and things that actually track us as United States citizens, because they're watching the bad guys and we have to be watched with it. So just follow the money.
That's crazy to think that the social media people need the president right now, or they need Trump or the Democrats to go one way or another. So I guess your premise is, you're saying that they're so the tech guys are like swinging to Trump with this belief that, hey, there's a huge business inside war.
I don't think they
technical
care.
war, and they're going to be there. I don't think Zuckerberg cares.
Let me split this and tell you why they care. Number one, regulation for them. And let me bring it up even higher, because I'm not just saying social media tech titans. Peter Thiel, Palantir, like these defense tech companies that are creating the system.
That's different. Like Palantir is Palantir is different than Facebook.
No, I'll tell you why it's not different, because they're going to utilize, this phone right here gives the social media companies and all the tech companies the information that we need in order to track us to be safer. I'm telling you, just
are we going Chin Hattie on us, Mike?
All right, we gotta jump off the Tim Hat. They already can do all that stuff. You know,
I agree.
Something that I think is interesting.
They're gonna make a lot of money, a lot more money.
Well, back to your original question, Ash. It's like the most power is Elon the most powerful based on how many people watched or anything else, or why are executives speaking more? I think we speak more because people listen. I've had 4 million people look at my Instagram reels in the last 30 days. That's crazy right now. And it's way more than I've ever had before, right? Like I've had hundreds of thousands of people a month on things, but I've had my reels have reached 4 million people. I had one get 2 million people. I had another one get 500,000. So in the last 30 days, I've just had this crazy outbreak stuff happening on Instagram. And surprisingly, I don't have 100,000 followers yet. But I guess my point of that is, like, people are talking because any regular person could all of a sudden get 4 million people to hear them. Right. So the media has just changed. And like so even though maybe Elon is one of the most powerful people, so is Mr. Beast, you know, Zuck has it, but like the media company owners, influencers have as much influence as the media companies. Now the media companies could potentially turn them off, right? Like YouTube could shut off Mr. Beast, but if you follow the money, they're not going to, because Mr. Beast gives them money. So there's plenty of people out there who have audiences and people listening, you know, like that just have, you know, millions of our friend Cody Sanchez, right? She got like 10 million followers now. Anything she says, 10 million people are going to vote that way, do anything. There's a lot of powerful people out there in this new world. So even though Elon and Zuck are at the top, we got lots of people doing that. The idea that the social media people are switching over to Trump to follow the money. How about they just switching over because the economy is shit right now? And so I think that's probably why they're looking for a change, because they know that whenever the economy is really bad, there's a change in power. The fact that it took Elon freaking 16 years of voting Democrat to become Republican, because back when Hillary Clinton was running too, when Barack Obama was running, there were times then that was in the middle of a war and the military industrial complex. And if they wanted to get into the military stuff back then, they would have been voting against Barack.
I have a question. I'm not going to phrase a statement because I don't want to be, but what do you think is the most important system for communications, whether it's phones, data imaging, security, any of it?
The phones that we got.
Satellite.
So I guess what's the most, but we send emails all day long, which I don't do from my phone.
You mean the pipes? The pipes are the most valuable assets.
I'm just saying that Elon Musk has more monetary incentive than we give him credit for. And again, I'm just telling you that I think Trump is the most set up person to push military industrial complex within our own borders of the candidates. And even back to what you said with freedom of speech, that's why the social media companies care about it. That's why they're getting in his pocket, because they think he might have a chance to win and they don't want to be his adversary.
Well, so that's fair of switching because you don't want to be, that's more like what Zuck said is, hey, I'm not voting for him, but hey, that was a pretty badass thing. Like that's more being in the middle of stuff. Elon is not being in the middle, but thinking
but you know what's fun though, guys, is that when you think about what's going on these social media platforms, you don't have a population of people coming like you did with the news or the TV, right? If you think back in the 80s and 90s, you turn on the TV, there are like 4 channels, and every couple hours there's one guy who we trust to tell us what information we need to understand, right? That's like really how the population got its information. Now you go on X and pretty much everybody's talking about everything in complete open forum. And so guys like Mooch have more influence than maybe the average citizen, but he can actually get instant feedback from an average citizen, and you can go back and forth and you can have discussion. So maybe these guys, maybe going back to my original question, maybe they have no power. Actually, the power is actually being diverted right back to the people now. You just got to hope that they're noble enough to be able to protect that.
We all choose who we want to listen to. There just isn't a fact checker anymore. The people that are watching CNN are choosing that. The people that are watching Elon are choosing that. The people that are, it's like we all choose who we want to listen to. There's very little in the middle of people listening to both sides. But I think
that's never changed, Mooch. Maybe that's what civilization has always done.
Civilization has always been like that. We listen to people that are going to agree with us. We very seldom change our mind. That's why it took Elon 16 years to change his mind. I guess the one thing we can be thankful for, and then I think you should jump to some other stuff, although this was an interesting thing for us to start on. Like if he was in China, he'd be missing, right? Like, and to joke or to not, like if you get too successful in China, they just kill you. Right? 5 billionaires went missing in 2015 that they've still never found, never heard from. Like they just did a quick little search of like missing Chinese billionaires. Right. I remember when Jack Ma went missing, who was like the CEO of a giant for like a few months and then came back kind of like he had been shocked and tortured for 3 months into agreeing with the party again. So I don't know. When successful people rise up in some other countries, that's when they're killed. So at least in the US, people have a right to. And my final vote is I think that he's just using his venue to even the odds in the way that he thinks is unfair.
Or at least the appearance of a right.
Huh?
Well,
I said, or at least the appearance of a right.
All right, so I want to talk. Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about spending. Let's talk about millionaires, discretionary income. This topic's going to be really fun. We got a lot of different articles and things to talk about. So,
what do we look at?
Financial Times talks about how I thought this was super fascinating, and I want to get your guys' read here. Is that more millionaires are migrating all over the world? But what was super fascinating about this article was that actually I thought millionaires were going to different countries than they're actually going. So thousands of millionaires projected to leave China, the UK, and India, and look where they're going: Singapore, US, and the UAE. UAE being the top. So this shows about 15,000 millionaires are leaving China, about 10,000 UK, India about 5,000, and most of them are going to the EU, or sorry, the UAE, Dubai, about 7,000 millionaires. Most countries are expected to increase the number of millionaires over the next 5 years. The U.S. is leading this from 2023 to 2025.
So
pin drops. Let's take it out.
Well, looking at both, they're two totally different charts.
Yeah.
Right. So back up to the UAE, to the moving to UAE one. Let's do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
You're going
Yeah.
to quit combining 85 topics into one and just give us like one
I told
question.
you today I have a lot of questions.
I know
today
it's not the same. Like,
All right,
go to the UAE moving one. There was one that said everyone is moving to the US, and either to the US or the UAE.
Yeah, it's right here. It's right here. Going from China, coming to the UAE, right here.
Okay.
You can see my screen. Go.
Okay. Is that surprising? No. Why? Like, no one wants, like, yeah, billionaires are leaving China to move to cooler places, like because they don't want to live in a communist country over there. The fact that they're allowed to leave China is kind of shocking. Maybe feels like spyware and things like that. I'm a little surprised that people are leaving the UK, although I bet that has to do with kind of crime and terror and things like that. Not necessarily economic stuff, but maybe we'll see on the next one. If you move to, I know several people that have moved to the UAE, right? That have moved to Dubai, which is crazy because it's across the world, but everything there is super, super nice, super, super high end. Dubai started rebuilding their country, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because they had oil money and they knew the oil money was eventually going to run out. So they wanted to rebuild an oil well. And in theory, I got to meet with an Emirati over there years ago and sit with him and talk to him for a few hours. And he explained how they were diverting their money into a more long-term thing. If they knew they were eventually going to run out of oil, they're going to use their money to build this great country. If you move there, you have tax-free income. So any of the money you make, if you live in Dubai, you don't pay taxes on.
Yeah.
There's very, very low crime. It's very, very pretty stuff, like world-class healthcare. Like, it's like the nicest, most luxurious of anything. So the tough part is you're living across the world. But I think when people go experience just how nice the highs are and how it doesn't cost more for those highs, like the hotels aren't very expensive, the stuff isn't very expensive. So anyway, I'm not surprised people are leaving China to go to the US, or that people are even leaving the US to move to Dubai. And it's like, and maybe it's like some of those millionaires and billionaires that have got kind of tired of the political stuff that we've been seeing over here, or all the talk of like, hey, stuff's getting crazy, America's about to go into a civil war, all the things that people say. Then I go into a place like Dubai where it's the new USA for a little while. Like, I think that part of it makes sense. You can leave your chart up in case there's other stuff that's important.
No, I'm pulling more stuff. Look at this. More than 100
now, what was the next chart? So your 8-part question. Go to one of the next charts so I can look at the money part.
I already moved to my next chart. My next part. No, there's nothing else. That was it.
You had like a money part of that chart that showed about like people were making more money in some countries than the other. What do you think about Dubai, Mike?
Not reading my.
I want to go there.
Again, cool.
I don't. To me,
you don't want to live there. Trust me. It's just if you're only going there to make money. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts on it, but to me, that chart is not overly shocking. Even the UK, as I was talking about earlier with you brought it up, but the censorship and the amount of I don't want to get political on this, but the amount of people that they've allowed in, what's it, refugees, and I mean, there's a lot of turmoil going on right now in the United Kingdom, and again, depending on what side of the coin you sit on, people are migrating in, people are migrating out. The only thing that chart shows is the amount of millionaires that are, moving for various reasons. And it makes sense because people probably just want a place where they feel safe to continue to invest. And, but I think it uncovers a lot of other issues. Why are people leaving the UK? Probably doesn't have anything to do with money. It has to do with, lifestyle and the chaos that's going there.
And maybe this is kind of optimistic too, that look how far superior the US is in terms of the number of millionaires that it expected to increase. I mean, shows you we're still the country with the most opportunity.
Oh yeah, it shows you that capitalism works. Like if there's ever a place
shows you capitalism works.
There's plenty of people that struggle. There's lots of people that struggle. I would say even most people struggle here, like in how to pay their bills and get caught up. And that's the unfortunate part of living anywhere in the world, I think. But it does show that The more millionaires coming, there's more hope here than anyone else for somebody that wants to be abnormal, somebody who wants to work harder, somebody who wants to make a change.
Yeah, and the scary part, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but when you look at the places that people are leaving from, as Aaron said, communism, socialism, that's the scary part of it. If we don't get our hands around this, that number of, from 2021 to that big number in America, it's not going to stay that way.
I was really surprised how low India is on this chart. Even Saudi, Hong Kong, I mean, maybe Hong Kong is sort of a legacy economy, but I'm pretty surprised that these countries, even look at UAE, maybe people are moving there, but the amount of millionaires that they're expecting to grow, this is a really cool chart to show you that the rules, regulations, the framework of the US really does foster.
The India part is shocking because it made me think of maybe it's a percentage of population, but it's not. It's just a straight number of millions. So there'll be 22 million more millionaires.
What do you think about this, Mooch? You're in the housing business. More than 100 U.S. cities have typical starter homes at $1 million or more. Look at the amount of dots in California. My God, Seattle.
It's funny. That chart's great. So if you aren't watching us on YouTube, you got to at least see this one or find the chart. Washington D.C. is one of those parts over there. That's and so then another part, like what is that?
Make
Boston
it over here
area?
This looks like New York.
Yeah, New York City.
Like New York to me. Yeah.
You got Washington D.C., New York City, Austin, L.A., and San Francisco make 95% of that.
And Seattle.
This is a nothing burger, and just in the sense that like there's way too many cities out there. There are some places that are just freaking expensive, and a lot of people live in those areas, and most people wouldn't plan to buy in those areas.
But it shows that the average starter home nationwide is priced at $196, so a fifth of that cost.
Yeah, but in the same token, I bet there's 100 cities that have starter homes under 75,000, right? So if that's the average, that means there's some that are even way lower than 175 in other places, and that's just how the world looks. Maybe the crazier part is 90, like 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the states makes up 90 out of 100.
Majority,
right? In 46 states, that's impossible.
What I think isn't a nothing burger about this, because this is like, as Aaron said, state, city specific. But there's an article on CNN from last month that says, according to Zillow, starter home values have grown 54.1%.
Yeah, right here.
Over the past 5 years, while the average U.S. home has increased by 49.1%. And tying it back into the millionaire chart, if homes have gone up 54% because of inflation and costs, then, I mean, is it shocking to us to think that millionaires haven't also increased by 54%? Is it actually that more true millionaires exist? And Aaron, we talked about this even in GoBundance 2 years ago, 3 years ago, is $1 million now $2 million or $2.5 million? So should we even be talking about millionaires, or is like 2.5 million now the new million?
Right. In the 80s, we were like what it was like to be a millionaire, right? Millionaire was the word. It was always the thing that people use. And the fact that 24 years later, we talk about millionaire as the same concept is pretty wild.
Are we saying that being a millionaire today is not what it used to be?
Of course, like compared to, or even making 6 figures is not what it used to be. But there's like home values are a supply demand equation. They like to prop this up, like the price is based on what people want to pay and what people are willing to pay and what people can pay. So a lot of times these articles are tailored in a way to say like, hey, housing is unaffordable in this city for the average person. And I'm not saying it isn't, but they're only $1 million because there's plenty of people that are buying those $1 million houses as their first home, as their starter home. The price is determined by who's going to buy it. So it's not like the cities. That's the fault of capitalism also. If someone's willing to pay it, someone's going to charge as much as they can for it.
What do you think about, we talked about the credit card crisis. We've talked about discretionary income. In my category, I'm not seeing any slowdown whatsoever. I was going to pull this up really quick and share this. Unusual Whales on Instagram. We've referenced them a few times. They said 20% of all U.S. population is canceling their summer vacations due to inflation. Nearly 50% are making other budgetary cuts to make ends meet, per Fortune. The Treasury Department is being, let's see. That's not what I wanted to share. I love how they market gold in that same post. 33% of U.S. households are also spending less on outdoor dining, entertainment, concerts, events, and paying for streaming services that are able to afford. The stock market took a huge hit for jobs report a couple of weeks ago. We talked about that too. Are we starting to see signs of a depression on the consumer level? Are people starting to spend less money? What do you think? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing?
I'll just go back to what I said before about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And for, the real estate people, and I've been saying this for a bit, this is going to happen. People are going to start, focusing on the basic human needs, food, water, shelter, and start getting rid of the things that don't actually matter for them, which I think we're just seeing an indication of that. I think people's pocketbooks are feeling tightened.
Mike, talk about buy now, pay later. And is that, you've mentioned that before too. You wanted to talk about it here. Is that come into play here? And is that going to save everybody? Like just credit and debt, more debt?
No, I don't think it's going to save everybody, but I'll share this chart really quick here.
Maybe not save everybody, but allow them to continue their lifestyle without,
for a period. But if you just look at the buy now, pay later, this chart shows awareness and use by year 2021 through 2023. So it's not even taking this year into consideration, but the people that heard about it, that were offered it and used it has gone from, I'm using it 6.6 to 8 to 9.3. And I think we're probably in the height of it right now. But the people that have heard of it, 56%, 73%, 76%, you guys may or may not be paying attention to this, but if you go to Instacart, if you go to like Amazon, you go into, any online places, and grocery stores are even starting to do this, where they have like digital checkout, you can split your grocery bill into 4 payments. So this started with like Affirm and these financing companies that have been doing stuff like this with, Peloton or, any big online purchases. It started with, a $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 purchase. You could finance it with Affirm, and it doesn't even pull your credit. So it's not even a hard credit check. And Affirm's been around for 6 or 7 years, where people split a, $3,000 to $7,000 purchase into 12 months of payment that essentially has a little bit of interest, but it doesn't even hard pull your credit. They're using, this is interesting. A lot of consumers don't know this, but if you've ever linked your bank account through, anything, and there's a company out there, I can't remember the name, Plaid. It's called Plaid. If you link your bank account through Plaid has a whole other arm that has it's not a FICO score, but it's like a credit reporting, because when you link your bank account with Plaid or you apply for like Affirm, it doesn't pull your FICO score. It doesn't give you a hard credit pool, but it does link to your bank account, and they can see the amount of transactions in and the amount of transactions out, and they can see the difference. Mm-hmm. And so there's like this whole credit rating out there that has nothing to do with FICO, and it has everything to do with the fact whether you can afford that extra $300 a month payment through a company like Affirm. And so when we're out here using these, like linking our bank accounts, honestly, people don't realize this, but even when you utilize, there's these like Quicken and these type of things where you can link your bank accounts and your credit card, and you use Plaid to do it. They are getting all of your data. Yeah, they can actually see what your spread is between your income and expenses. And so they're developing kind of a new credit score, but bringing it back to this buy now, pay later. There's a lot of people right now that are buying concert tickets. They're buying, $100, $200, $300 expenses on buy now, pay later. You can do this with right now you go into Amex and you book a vacation. You can split that vacation into payments. And people are utilizing this, and it's just another form that's creating a bigger problem where people, that maybe today are not really squawking about the cost of groceries because they're splitting it over buy now, pay later. But the reality is this is no different than payday checks.
What is that?
I think that what you said there about them being able to track income out and outflow through your bank account in order to determine if you can be lendable, that's pretty cool. We tie ourselves into so many different apps, and that makes a lot of sense. And that also shows why any app that says it's free isn't, right? Like free planning app that you link your bank account to, and then they sell your info to somebody else to see what they should be letting you borrow. If you went it's kind of tied together. So if you went back to one of your slides you had up that showed like what percentage of people say they're struggling right now. So the buy now, pay later, that's interesting. So it says Affirm says that 43% of their loans have a 0% APR, but their highest loans are 36% interest. And I remember when I first got a Peloton, I considered the buy now, pay later, because why not? Because in my mind, even if I can pay cash, you should borrow on everything. Like the way that I've built my
Spoken
stuff is
like
cool.
a real estate investor.
Right. That's purely like a real estate investor. I would rather have an extra $10,000 in my pocket because I believe in myself and I'll invest in myself. And the more cash I have, the more investments I can buy.
But you don't have
and maybe
fixed
that's
income
spoken like a real estate investor when real estate was more liquid. It'd be very normal to go, no, if I have an extra $50,000, there's a decent chance I can make an extra $5,000 this month and it's going to outweigh it. But I think the problem is there's probably a lot of people using a firm to, I think it's all tied together in the sense that I feel like the number is higher of people that are canceling their trips. I think it's higher for the people that have maxed out on cards. I have felt it. I have seen it. I have employees that feel it and seen it. I've had an employee come to me this week and say, hey, like they had to sell one of their cars and now he can get dropped off for work, but then he needs to carpool with the guys and get picked up because his wife needs to drive Uber during the day with the car that they have left. And having a car is like a requirement to work, right? Like being able to drive from job site to job site. And he's just like, I don't know what you want me to do. Right. So I'm seeing we've hired a bunch of people in the last few months, right? We've hired 15 people on the, at the lower income scale, like, hourly labor. Right. So I'm getting to see and hear all of these conversations of, we can't get ahead. We don't know how to get ahead. We have to have side jobs and we don't know what to do. People just freaking out because they can't do it. So anyway, people
those
canceling
are the conversations
vacation
that you're having. Those people, that's what your employees are telling you right now.
Right.
All these new folks.
And on a personal level, we did less vacations this year because of finances, 100%. Right. I've seen cards and credit lines die out. And frankly, if some of my credit lines hadn't been cut, I probably would have still gone on vacation. Right. So like, that's even one of the problems that's propped up the economy for a long time. Like if my big line of credit, when I paid it off, wouldn't have canceled it, I probably would have done a couple extra Disneyland trips, but instead it's like, oh, because you think about credit as fake money. I think people use the buy now, pay later as fake money. And so right now, if they can't buy something, the companies that like partner with a firm to like buy down those credit rates and stuff like that, they need sales. So they need to be able to show the sales on the first day, and so it's helpful for all of them to, publicly traded companies. Peloton can say they're selling more Pelotons by partnering with a firm. The old home builder trick was to do, a bunch of sales incentives to drop the rates to sell your house, and you give $30,000 away to sell a $300,000 house, to be able to show your volume levels. So anyway, I
want to ask you when you guys are talking about that, what advice do you give to people when they're saying that, when they're saying like, I don't know how to get ahead and what do I do? What do I do, Mooch?
Dude, the sad conversation today
is a tough conversation.
The sad conversation that I could have today was like, all I could say is I've been there, I've done that, and there's no easy button. There's no easy button bailout. Because one of the guys like, hey, can you help me buy this car? I can buy this car. Do you think you can just give me the money to buy it and I'll pay you back? Right? And he's been working for me for a month. And I really like the guy. It's like, no, that's not how life works. You're not going to meet somebody 30 days later, have them buy you a car, and then you make them payments. If you were lendable and reliable, you could get a loan to go buy this car, to do it different. So all I could tell them is keep working. And yeah, if right now you're carpooling because your significant other needs your car during the day to do DoorDash and you're doing DoorDash at night and you're doing it on the weekends. I remember having 3 or 4 jobs. I remember pushing through it, and there's no easy button that gets you through the pain. It is super crappy that the biggest solution is figure out how to earn more and spend less, although spending less is really hard, because that's what broke everybody with COVID, really, is it gave people unrealistic spending expectations. It's so much harder to go back the other way. I remember when I used to live off not very much money a month, even when I had kids. And then I started getting wealthy and I went to this whole different level of spending. And I can't imagine going back to even 3 times what I was operating on my first couple of years of being a parent. So it's just hard to go back. But it is crappy to go, like, you have to out earn your problem, and then you have to eventually buy that next thing. Like, yeah, save up for 2 or 3 months. You can get a car in 2 or 3 months,
Aaron's story about the guy wanting to borrow money for a car, I think kind of shows another problem with psychology in that people think that, because Aaron has X amount of, millions of dollars in businesses and a nicer house, that Aaron is just sitting on $50 million of cash to just help everybody. And the reason why I'm saying this, and maybe Aaron is sitting on 50 million of cash, I don't know.
I wish.
But I think the psychology of that question from that guy just kind of reinforces what Aaron's saying too, where people think, well, if I could just get to the next level or 2 levels up or Aaron's level, like all my problems go away and I won't have to worry about expenses and spending too much money, and it never ends. And I think that that's one of the core problems. And, I've never been a huge fan of Dave Ramsey over the years because my mindset has always been in like, how do I earn more? And I think there's a big percentage of people, just like you said, Ash, in the beginning, and Aaron said it too, like this is a really hard conversation because most people don't know how to make more money. They know how to spend more money, but they're not truly, entrepreneurs. They're not truly business builders. And the only way to really get wealthy in a shorter period of time, meaning, a 10-year horizon, is to build something, to figure out how you're not going to get wealthy on making 75 or 100,000 or $150,000 a year unless you learn to do other things, invest, buy real estate, buy a business, own your future. Can you live a good life over 30, 40 years doing that? Sure. But back to Dave Ramsey, the thing that I've realized about Dave Ramsey is really good advice for the majority of people that don't know how to out earn their spending. But it comes back to the same thing. Like you can't out earn your spending. It doesn't matter if you make $3 million. If you spend 3.5, you're screwed.
Look at this. I just pulled this up from ChatGPT. I thought it was super fun. I've been wanting to do this. I'm glad we just did it on this call. Look at this. So these are all the generations. You can see the years, right? A lot of people talk about how the Gen Z population is the one that's most suffering, right? These are the 97 to 2012 population. Digital natives, social media dominance. This is where they grew up. This is the population of the people that are probably the ones that are talking to you, Mooch. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Climate, mental health issues, economic uncertainty, social pressures, right? When you talk about boomers, who are the wealthiest population in humanity, okay? Post-World War II economic boom, civil rights movement, Vietnam War, cultural revolutions, transition to digital world, economic recessions, and retirement and security. Difficulty, lots of challenge, lots of hardship, right? Gen Z, the hardship is just different. I won't say there's no hardship. It's just different hardship, right? So perhaps abundance has created a different complexity where now it's hard to grind and have the durability that happens when you live and grow up like this in war, in Cold War. I thought this is fascinating.
Right. It's like the best thing that could happen to the guys asking for help is they go through this pain and they work and find their way out of it and they get to the other side. Right.
Yeah.
And then it creates like what happened for the generation.
It's like extreme suffering builds strong men.
Oh, I do not regret any of the suffering that I went through to get me to where I am and push me into performing. But the bummer, and I think what Mike picked up on too, is so then when I tell him no, then there's this feeling of like,
oh yeah,
well, why? That's nothing to you. There's this feeling of like, yeah, like that it's my responsibility, or hey, I should say yes because I can, type thing. And so it makes it to where it's really challenging on that sort of thing. So that's the disappointing part. Maddie, is that you? Maddie, come say hi on my podcast really quick. I don't know if you guys have met my entrepreneur daughter, but she came into the office. I brag about her all the time out there. So she's interrupting the King's table for just a moment.
She's crushing it on TikTok, right?
Yes, she is blowing up on TikTok and selling stickers and everything else. My entrepreneur daughter checking at the office. I will come say hi to you when I'm done. But thanks for coming in and say hi. She's so responsible. I haven't seen her in days. So I texted her and say, hey, I haven't seen you in days. And she came in to say hi.
Maybe we need to have her on the podcast and give some insight onto the mindset of Gen Z.
Yes, we can ask her this perspective of what people think is owed to them or not. Like she has a job right now. She doesn't need one. She's got a job for fun.
Well, I want to bring this topic up. Maybe we'll wrap up with this topic about leadership because I was watching this Jensen Huang video. He's the CEO of NVIDIA. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. I sent it in the group chat. He talks about how he has 60 direct reports and he does no one-to-ones. I'm going to play a little bit and I'll skip through it, but I want you guys to hear this. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear.
60 people?
60 direct reports.
60 direct reports, yeah.
Which is not conventionally considered the best practice.
I'm certain that's the best practice. It's not conventional, but I am certain it's the best practice. The reason is because the layer of hierarchy in your company really matters. I don't do one-on-ones, and almost everything that I say to everybody all at the same time. And the reason for that is because I don't really believe there's any information that I operate on that somehow only one or two people should hear about. These are the challenges of the company, or this is the problem I'm trying to solve, or this is the direction we're trying to go into. This isn't working, that's working well. All of this type of information, everybody should be able to hear. I love that everybody's working off of the same song sheet. I love that there's no privileged access to information. I love that we're able to all contribute to solving a problem. And when you have 60 people in the room, everybody heard the reasoning of the problem. Everybody heard the reasoning of the solution. Everybody heard everything. I believe that when you give everybody equal access to information.
He goes on to share that he gives reviews, he gives feedback, he gives change of strategy, personal development things, all of it, all at the same time with everybody in the room. I thought that was, I thought it was incredibly refreshing. I feel like in a lot of ways I operate that way. What do you guys think? I think that I am struggling to, and I'm glad we're wrapping this all up because I think that when you have multiple generations of people that all have different expectations of where they are, it's hard to have that conversation in such a big forum because people are much more sensitive. They need different levels of communication. And or should we just ignore that? Should that not matter? Like, listen, you either get with it where you can get reamed in a room of 60 people and you can survive and move on, or just get off the bus. So I'd love your guys' perspective on leadership, on how that supports healthy communication and taking swift action as an organization, or you think that's actually sloppy and inefficient and messy. I'll call Mike first.
I'll just
Mike,
say
go
that
ahead.
from like a really high level and making a whole bunch of assumptions that I don't know that I should be making. But I think it's really hard in a smaller company, smaller meaning, 300, 200, 100 down to 20 to even 10 employees, to just say, hey, I'm not going to have one-on-ones. And I've never ran a company of 30,000 employees, so maybe I'm coming from a standpoint of limiting belief. But I think if Aaron could go out and hire 5 managers of an accounting department and a sales department and a construction division, and they were like $300,000 to $400,000 a year employees that like really knew their shit, maybe he doesn't need to have one-on-ones with them. But if you're running a company where, your department managers and people that are running your teams and stuff like that are direct reports to you are maybe being nurtured, mentored, they're younger, they're making between $70,000 and $120,000, $130,000 a year. I think the idea of not having one-on-ones, and by the way, I said this in our text thread, I'm an advocate of what he's saying.
Because you hate one-on-ones.
It's not, sometimes I feel like it's a waste of time. Of my time. Like I have resistance around it because I'm looking at my calendar and I have so much to do. And I'm like, is this really the best use of my time? But in reality, if we have our leadership hat on properly and we're there to support and mentor and nurture and be a sounding board for them, we probably need that one-on-one time. And again, this might be where I have a limiting belief or an unrealistic understanding of what NVIDIA is. But if you run a company of 20, 30,000 employees that are all doing kind of one thing, like, hey, we're making these kits and chips and stuff that supply the industry, and our mantra is like one thing, maybe it's easier. But I also think that he probably has more people on his staff that are more skilled and experienced and knowledgeable in their skill set than I maybe have of anybody on.
So the argument he makes to that comment was that if you're going to have a one-to-one and you're going to give somebody feedback and mentoring, why are you depriving that same lesson to everybody? So to that, right? So that same argument could be made as like, well, if you have all these mid-level, junior level people that are learning, they need more intimate time. Well, put them all in a room together and have them learn at hyperspeed.
And I agree with that if our company just does one thing. But if our company, and I just used Aaron's case, but I'll use mine, I have property managers, regional managers, project managers that are all focused on getting a certain thing done on a property division. I have a capital team that is in a completely different wavelength and probably doesn't even know anything about what it takes to be part of the property management team. And so it would be really hard for me to, have a team meeting once a week where it's like, hey guys, I mean, if I had to
Everybody in one room.
yeah, if I had to sum up the one thing, like, hey guys, how do we make our business? How do we make money in this business? If I had to narrow it down to one thing, it's renting or selling single wide mobile homes. But my asset management team would be like, well, what does that have to do with us? Like, I thought our job was to raise capital and increase marketing leads. And so, yeah, it's still the same outcome, but or even back, Aaron, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but your business is pretty multifaceted. You have tech companies, you have construction companies, you have sales teams. And even though, yeah, we could sum it up into one thing, it's not one thing.
Something interesting that he talked about. I say interesting too much, so sorry for all the listeners for me being annoying.
There's a lot of interesting things.
It's the
interesting.
Doing people's reviews together is a fascinating idea.
Right there on the spot, Mooch. Right there on the spot.
Oh, I do. So there's a lot of what he said that I agree with, and I run my business like that. And I'll give you guys some examples. So I'll start with that. Like, I actually think that he's right. The exception that I usually make is one-on-one reviews. Now, people like to do reviews one-on-one. They like one-on-one attention. They feel seen. It's supposed to be an opportunity for them to say something that, like, I won't judge them on. So when I do one-on-one reviews, I say, okay, right now is a safe space. You get to come in at this point and complain about whatever, talk about whatever, ask the question. This is the spot that you can say it. And I'm also going to be really critical of you, and where they can go like, hey, you made this promise, you didn't keep it. Or, hey, I want to raise. Or, hey, this is hard. Or, hey, this person's making my job hard. And the reason I try to do quarterly reviews like that is to tell the people when they start to complain about something or ask about a raise, I say, talk about that at review time. So the review is almost like going to confession in the old Catholic Church. And that's the way that I use it. This one-on-one opportunity to get some stuff out, to refresh some stuff, come up with some goals into the game. But I also get that that feedback is pretty instant. So I have right now, every day at 8:30, my 15 to 18 construction workers have to be out at my set of tables out here. Mike, you've been to my office. We've outgrown my regular conference room for our morning stand-ups. So my bigger conference room that I have, my morning stand-up, every day I'm still here first at the office. Now, if once the business is cranking, I'm making more money, I'm not stressed all the time, I'm not gonna be first. I don't want to be first. I don't want to be the leader. I want to have leaders that can do this stuff, right? But for the last 4 or 5 months, I'm the first person at the office. I'm the last person to leave. So from the people wanting me to buy their cars or anything else, I'm the guy doing it. I love these guys that are coming in, these new construction guys. I meet with them every day. But I started this like 2 or 3 weeks ago because I had a manager that was supposed to be doing it, but it was getting too crazy and people were getting sent to different job sites and not knowing where they were supposed to go. And I said, look, all right, I'll lead by example again for a while until one of my managers can take this over for me. A couple weeks ago, I said, this meeting starts at 8:30, which means you get here before and you don't show up late, because at 8:30, we're starting, you're in that seat. And the next day, everybody showed up like 8 or 8:10. And we started our meeting at 8:20 because every guy had gotten there early and we were out of there by 8:30. Which is perfect because at 9, I do it with the rest of my team that are the office workers. There's 12 or 14 people there. So I meet with 15 to 18 people at 8:30, and then another 10 to 12 at 9. Today, 2 guys rolled in late to the 8:30 meeting. Now, yesterday, 2 or 3 guys rolled in late, but they were on the group text and they were all sending me pictures of horrible traffic. So then they got in yesterday and I said, hey, so bad traffic today because school's back in session. So like, remember this, get here on time. And 2 guys were there late today. And right when my meeting started, I said, look, guys, if you aren't going to be in that chair by 8:30, don't come in. If you get halfway here and you realize you're not going to get here till 8:31, don't come in because I'm going to send you home. You're not allowed to be here late anymore. Now that was critical feedback that I gave in front of everybody, right? And it wasn't necessarily trying to call out those 2 or 3 because the 2 or 3 today weren't the same ones that were late yesterday. Maybe one of the guys was late both days. But it was just but I want to make it really clear and really clear feedback to everybody. Nope, you're late again, you're out. Like, so if you can't be in that chair by 8:30, like, don't come in at all. So we'll see what time people are here tomorrow with that. I really like, so I do group meetings every morning with that group. I do group meetings with my office people every morning at 9. And then on Tuesdays, we do it with everybody in the entire company and all the different divisions. The reason I love the bigger the meeting, the better, which Cameron Harold will tell you is the opposite, right? So for what the guy at NVIDIA is saying, Cameron Harold would obviously just tell you it is a bad thing instead. So check out his book, Meetings Suck. He's got great stuff on it. Great business leader and coach guy out there. But what I like is when we're having the meetings and we're like laying stuff out, a guy goes, "Oh, I have the tool for that." So it used to be like we would text somebody and say, "Hey, you go here," and then we text somebody else and say, "You go here," and you go here. And as we're having these conversations in the morning, somebody else goes, "Oh, I actually have the tool for that," or somebody else goes, "Hey, that wasn't done yesterday," or "Oh, we never finished that other job." So the amount of interaction that happens, especially in construction, real estate development, even between the finance and the commercial and everybody else, the amount of like residential development stuff that happens is amazing. Because the amount of interaction, because there's people that know stuff about other people's departments that they don't know. So anyway, I definitely agree with what he's saying, and I'm curious if I need to take it a step further and have my confession days with everybody be together instead.
I love it. I think this is how you lead, how you take action, how you get shit done. To be honest, I think it's interesting that a company of 30,000 employees does it this way. I think that's why that reporter said it's unconventional, but I love it, man. I think more people together. Mike, I'll challenge your thinking in terms of different departments and have everybody has different responsibilities. But I think the more everyone knows what everyone else does and how they contribute to your one mission, which was, selling whatever you said there, like selling that wide, asset is important. How do I contribute to that one mission? And people, I think it's good for, Mooch, you were saying about getting feedback when everyone is doing the same thing, right? But when people are doing different things and they're in different departments, for them to hear the CEO say, "Hey, look, we're not going to let this happen. You're not going to get away with that. Your department, you guys can't show up late. You guys make too many mistakes in accounting and invoicing or whatever." I think it creates this camaraderie and expectation. In the restaurant business, if you go to a good quality restaurant before service, they have stand-ups. That's like best practice, right? In some of the best restaurants in the world, it's like they have stand-ups. Okay, who's coming in today? What's on the menu? Who's hosting? What are the issues we had yesterday? Anything that we need to know about it? Any ingredient allergy problems or blah, blah, blah. Everybody know what their plan is? Hey, yesterday table 16 was complaining about this and this dish didn't come out properly and we were late on this, and this. Everybody sharp. Let's go. Take action. Boom. And having that sort of immediate feedback loop, I think is pretty, it's not for everybody, right?
Well, but just for the record too, I don't have one-on-ones. Just so, and you kind of have to read between the lines too, because like we've ran on EOS for quite a while, and EOS has this concept of like a level 10 meeting.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Level 10 is your stand-up right now.
Well, and I think the idea of having a stand-up every day, like Aaron does, Aaron's saying every morning they meet, that's a version of a stand-up. The L10 meeting, I have an L10 meeting with my core leadership team, Kara, Amy, Lisa, once a week. It's a 90-minute meeting. I have an L10 meeting with my marketing and sales team. So I don't have one-on-ones. Do we have like
you have your L10 meetings?
So I get what he's saying, and I agree with you. Like I hate one-on-ones because it just feels like it has to be this constant, check-in meeting, when in reality, and even reviews. So if you look at the EOS process, we do regular reviews in the EOS meetings, and you have to simplify it and make sure that it's standardized. But we rate on two things: on core values and gets it, wants it, capacity to do it. And we do those live with the people that are in that leadership group or team or whatever it is, and they're live rankings. So I think at the core, I agree with it too. I don't do one-on-ones.
Fun. Good conversation today. There you go, guys. Some very range of topics and discussion points.
Wait, you should talk about what you just posted, what Tim just posted there. Did you see that?
Yeah. Okay. Let's share, guys. This is breaking news. Okay. Has not been vetted by our team yet, but literally just hit the news docket. Let me pull up this article. It looks like every American Social Security information was just hacked. Okay. So know that this is, we're going to be posting this a couple days after, but literally like as we're recording to the minute, this just got hit. looks like a hacking group called the USDOD claims to have stolen 2.7 billion records of personal information from Americans, including their social security numbers and physical addresses. So this is probably going to unravel this week. Ay, 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 ay. What do we have to say about this?
You want to end on a tinfoil hat? This is a perfect move toward the Great Reset, because all of our social security numbers are hacked, and they're going to have to just wipe out all of our debt.
Oh, bro, they're not wiping anybody's debt. There's no way that they go to the Great Reset. You know, the cool thing about everybody's social security number getting stolen, one is like it's everybody's, so everybody's in the same boat. Like so whatever risk that happens, you know, it's every risk that happens. We see somebody in the chat saying it's for the election, so people can vote for other people using their social security numbers. Have you guys felt so I'm just going to answer with a question. Have you guys felt your social security number was super secure?
No.
Have you always felt like yours is out there somewhere, and if someone wanted to find it, they could find it pretty easy?
Yeah.
We were talking about the credit card thing earlier. Do you know that if you put your credit card information into any portal, which nowadays, like, you have to put your credit card everywhere, the medium that communicates that website to the actual credit card company is, like Mike said, Plaid, or there's a couple of them, right, Mike? I can't remember the others. There's like Plaid and one or two others that are like the big behemoths that control that channel between the processing, between the company you're swiping your credit card to and the actual Amex or Visa or whatever. So if you're going to Lululemon and you're putting your credit card information, Plaid basically has every single transaction you have on every credit card, on every single thing. And Lululemon now sees that data too. So you go buy a pair of pants online with Lululemon. Okay, I got to be careful using their name because maybe they'll come after the King's Table and take us for everything we own, because that's
be good for you.
For all 400
But my point is that those companies, the amount of information that's out there about our spending habits, what we spend money on, when we spend money on it. Mike, you were using an example of debits and credits, but I'm not even talking about debits. I'm talking about every freaking swipe, every single thing you spend money on, that company sees. So Mooch, man, we need to get used to a world where everything you do everywhere you go is seen.
In my mind, nothing is secret.
Seen. Nothing is secret.
Yeah. So when I see that news, my first reply is like,
a conspiracy theorist about this earlier.
No, I didn't say that. I just said we're going to get our tinfoil hats on. It was the time.
All right, I'm going to pull a mic and say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody has our social security cards. They've always had them. It doesn't matter if we know that when we talk on our phone, someone has the info and we do it anyway. And we know who we're listening to is going to be biased toward what we want. If we want changes, we got to make different decisions, and we got to focus on what we got in front of us. But it's interesting that it hit big news. I mean, it's probably the first time it's ever happened on such a bigger level, but anybody at any time could have hacked into one of my employees' emails and probably found my social security number in there somewhere. So none of that stuff's sacred. In my mind, not in the tech world, but like you said, we just have to get used to the idea that all of our info is out there. How scary is this? This came up on our other podcast that we love, the All In, and one of them starts saying like, "Wait, you mean all my Google Chrome history people have?" And then he goes, "Wait, what about incognito mode? Do they have my incognito mode viewing history?" And they're like, "Yep." And they're like, "Wait, every photo that's ever been on my phone, somebody has?" And they're like, "Yep." And there was this like look of like panic of going like, "Oh crap." So yeah, like that's what's really out there, and that's what you'll be judged on, especially if you come to someone in power. Every picture on your phone, everything you've ever visited on your thing.
Well, the fun thing is that we're all human. The fun thing is we're all human, right? And so if it happens to everybody, then it does not matter.
It does not matter.
Great Reset.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. Great episode today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the King's Table. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow us. Make sure you leave comments, but we appreciate all of you guys so much. Thanks so much for listening to the King's Table. On behalf of myself, Ashish Nathu, my good friends, Aaron Amuchastegui, Mike Ayala, and of course, we missed Maddie Aitchison today. See you next time. Peace out.